Welcome to Coaching Culture, the podcast about cultivating culture and leadership. I'm Ben Herring, and I've been loving this side of the game for bloody ages. Today's guest is Tony Shaw. Tony was one of the great Australian captains, playing 36 games for Australia in a remarkable 10-year career from 1973 to 1982. He is known as an uncompromising, take-no-prisoner type player, and an outstanding and rucker and mauler, which sadly is not something that's spoken about much these days. Fellow players have said he has had the rare balance between toughness and technical brilliance, which separate the good from the great player. He is a former student at St Joseph's College in Gregory Terrace, as well as a former president of Rugby Australia. He has had a lifetime in the game, including 2012, an induction to the Wallaby Hall of Fame. Here's a reminder of what matters in this game. Tony Shaw, welcome to the Coaching Culture podcast.
Delighted to be here, Ben. Thanks, mate.
It's absolutely pleasure to have you from your home in Brizzy. Great to see. Tony, if we start off, how do you define culture?
How do I define culture? I don't think there's a sentence or it's probably a group of phrases and group of words that sort of define it. I mean, I don't think you can commoditize it into a sentence or two. There's so much that goes into it, from attitude, I think is the biggest thing, and that's the most important thing for me. Teamwork, setting the standards, trying to achieve better and better, behaviour, trying to be the best. But it's something that you can't teach people. It's like it's a pretty simple definition. It's sort of like, I think, like this is how we do things around here. It's as simple as that, and I think it's something that you can't coach. You can't, you can work at developing it, but I think it's got to be nurtured. It's something that's heavily involved in the leadership of the team, and caring about people and getting people involved and understanding what you're trying to achieve and understanding why you're making certain decisions with certain selections. I think it's worth, sharing that with the team. And I'm a big one on inclusion and including people in those sort of decisions. So that's and trust. I think all those sort of words, you mould them together to have a definition of culture. I think
Yeah.
And it's not just about great players or great football, rugby players. It's that will to win, that will to be constantly improving, getting better, and if you're winning, to keep winning. It's character. It's about the character of the players and the organisation. It's not just the players; it's the whole organisation as such. Whether that's a school or whether that's a club. I played for Brothers, and Brothers have got a really strong culture, and it oozes through all of the grades, from the 5 cult sides to the 5 grade sides to the to the juniors, to some extent the juniors, and that's evolving. But it's and also the history of the game, that you recognise the history of the game, and when you get an opportunity to talk to the players, just say, sometimes it's, you might get an introduction like you've given me, and it's like, well, it's not about me. It's about you. You're the club. There might have been some history that, Paul McLean, me, others, a whole lot of others have done well at the club, but it's you are the club. You're the living, breathing, culture of the club. So that's as I see it. It's, have respect for the history and those who have gone before, but it's in the lap of the current players, as far as I'm concerned.
Do you think you've obviously got a huge history in the game, playing for a long, long time, and also still involved in Queensland, the president of Rugby Australia? You've seen a lot. How has it evolved, the culture of the game, over your lifespan?
I don't know about the culture of the game. I think culture of more of the teams I've been in, whether that's Brothers or Queensland or the Wallabies, that's more what I'm been associated with, rather than the overall culture of the amorphous blob of sort of Rugby Australia and what they cover. I'm not involved in that. It's up to the we've made some poor decisions over the time, I think, and we've got rugby league and we've got AFL, dominating us to some extent. But I think the positives we Rugby Australia has identified that, and they're bringing. There's more women playing. There's more kids playing. Juniors coming through. Trying to get the juniors into seniors. They're working really hard on getting improving the participation. And engagement, whether that's sevens or 15s or I think it's across the board.
Yeah. Well, certainly when we look at the Brothers Rugby Club, that's still going strong today. Having been out there, like that is a proud club. Which culture of that club is still. James O'Connor was talking about like how he went back to play for that club because he just loved it, just loved the environment. He walked back in and just everything about it was why he played rugby. It's certain places seem to capture, that lovely feeling when you walk into it, right?
Well, James did love coming back. You'd catch him before a game and he'd have the brothers jersey and I said, great to see you in the butcher stripe. He said, I love it, And then Harry Wilson, when Harry gets a chance to come back and play, not so often these days as captain, but, he's sort of beaten the chest. He's showing his, always wearing his heart on his shoulder. And then Taniela Tupou, when he played for us, Taniela would come down early, and when he had Wallaby commitments and that sort of thing, he'd come and run the line in fourth grade. Like it's great. They want to be engaged. They want to be involved. And another example of working bee last year, we probably had 40 or 50 down there at the club. Fraser was down there. Harry was down there. There was 3 or 4 of them down there. They did bugger all, but they had the interest to come down and be part of it. Which speaks volumes. They're they weren't getting their hands dirty. They're probably down for a few beers afterwards, but they were there and wanted to be part of it, and that's part of the culture. It just oozes it.
How do you get people to do that? Do you reckon? How do some clubs do that so well? Is it? Can you define it?
No, I can't. No, and there was no phone calls made to, hey boys, it'd be great if you'd come down. No, they just turned up. Knew it was on, and they just turned up and want to be part of it, want to be involved.
It's just lovely. The way you do things.
Yeah, that's right. The way we do things around here. Pretty simple little phrase, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good little phrase. It's a really good little phrase. It's a proud club. And so your journey was really good there, wasn't it? You made it as a 20-year-old into Brothers, which is pumping back in your day, and then went on to play for Queensland. What was that transition like for you as a player?
I played there was no pathways in those days. None at all. They weren't tapping anyone on the shoulder. There was no academy. Brothers have got an academy for the men and the women now, which is wonderful, bringing younger players through and improving their skills and their attitude. But I just went to Brothers after school. There were no connections. Played 2 years 19s and then played first grade and played for Queensland that year. Played for the Wallabies that year. So there was no transition. It was just, if you're old enough, you're good enough almost, If you're good enough, you're old enough. That's, the bottom line, I think. And, I was fortunate to go on at 20 at first year, first grade, to go on a tour to the UK to England and Wales with the Wallabies and play 2 tests. And the first test at Cardiff Arms Park, which was absolutely awesome. It was eye-opening.
What a great experience as a young man, hey?
It was that long ago we were singing God Save the Queen. And that wasn't very emotional, I got to tell you, before the game. And yet, Land of Our Fathers, when the Welsh start singing, tears streaming down the face at their anthem, not ours, Very different era.
Very different era, right?
Very different.
Do you think, what's changed, do you reckon? Why is that emotion, that sort of passion, not as prevalent in today's game? Any thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I think there is. I think there's just as much passion. I don't think players have lost passion to play for the Wallabies or that was my first test. I didn't cry at every game. But just that atmosphere of Wales and that, the the crowd singing and wafting from one side to the other, and and you walk out like. What's very different, I think, is the tours. Our tours in those days, that was a 6-week tour, just playing 2 tests. But we had 2 long tours to the UK for 3.5 months. So you played 23 matches, played Wednesday, Saturday until you come to a test, and you play Tuesday, Saturday. You'd move lodgings every 3 to 7 days, and that built great camaraderie in the team. 3.5 months on tour with your best mates, playing for your country. You can't beat that.
I'd imagine you'd know people pretty well when you play twice a week for 3.5 months. That is a long time to be on tour with anybody, right?
Yeah, and being with guys who are coming through injuries, trying to get back to playing, going through physio. Your best mates, but you're also vying with each other to take their spot, or they want your spot. So, training becomes fairly intense, as you can imagine. You've got when you got contact training, which is good.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah. But those tours in those days would have been fantastic fun, right? Like, not like you're just on tour with your mates doing that, like with good life building stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's about people understanding. You learn so much from that, I think. And we met we had an audience at the Buckingham Palace with Charles and Anne and the Queen, and lots of stories about that one. One about Ray Price, particularly. Ray Price, he was obviously rugby before he went to league. About being on the bus, Pricey walks in, and there's a bit of a clanging of, and you're thinking, like cutlery clanging. You think, Pricey, you didn't. He said, "Bugger, stuff it, mate. I've got plenty of money." He's got knives and forks and things with the crest of the Queen, a couple of cups and saucers in the pocket. Yeah, wasn't great for it.
Just fleece it off the Queen's.
He's Pricey nicking stuff from Buckingham Palace, And Pricey had a hernia on tour, and I roomed with him quite a bit, and that's always an experience, because all he wanted to do was play. He let him play, and he was a liaison officer's nightmare when he wasn't playing. But that was fun. Price, but you're rooming with different guys the whole time. They just threw everybody around. So you get to know people really, really well, and yourself a lot better, I think, as well.
Yeah.
How you handle adversity, and Stewie McDougall had got dropped late in the tour, and this is about 5 games out from the end of the tour, and he's a funny bloke. And then at the back of the bus, he'd be saying, Ross Turnbull, who was the manager, would announce the team at the front of the bus when we went to the training after the previous match. Asked the bus driver to leave. It was a bit of a ritual. Here's the team. And Stewart would be at the back. McDougall, MAC, small D. Remember me? McDougall announced the side. He wasn't in it. So this happened for about 5 games in a row. At the end, before the last team was announced, on the side of the bus as we've walked in, there's a little sign stuck, little post, bigger than a post-it note, but stuck to the bus: for sale, 1 pair of size 10 caps, rugby boots, hardly used. See Stu in room 456. But he could have really affected the whole culture of the team and the whole feeling of the team if he'd gotten the shits and cracked it, but he hadn't. He just carried on as if nothing had happened. He's the funniest guy on tour, which was awesome. For disappointing for him, but he made it funny, and
yeah. I guess touring would actually highlight how strong the culture is, right? Because everything's magnified on tour. You're living in the same quarters, you're sharing everything. So little things like that. Your disappointment, you have to quickly tuck it away if the culture's such. Yeah. Because otherwise,
and when you're touring the UK, things are efficient and things work. But in France, they deliberately stuffed you around. The buses wouldn't turn up, and it is okay, do not worry. They'd be saying it will be 10 minutes, it will be another 30 minutes, and you're frustrated about it, but you just got to let it go and say, we're living. This is how it works in France. You know, and the liaison officer who couldn't speak English, that's pretty handy as a liaison officer, until the after-match function at the last test match, where he spoke in perfect English, but he'd been sitting in strategy meetings and all that sort of thing with the team, us thinking he couldn't speak English. He had a little interesting trip to the balcony, but a couple of us holding his legs over the balcony at the end of that trip.
Those are the days before. Yeah, there's no cameras filming those
the annals of Rugby Australia, I'll tell you now.
How did your leaders get that culture to be like that as you were going? Was I know you said it's hard to teach this stuff, but was it just something that everyone knew inherently, or is just the way it was back then? Like, did the coaches have to come and sit you down and go, okay, fellas, here's how I want it to roll, and this is what I want you to buy into, and this is how it is? Or was it a bit more organic than that? It just sort of evolved?
I think it evolves from the team and the leadership of the team. You know, I don't. Yeah, I think it comes from within the team. Clearly, the coach and the manager, and that's different as well, because it's coach and manager and maybe a physio. That was it. That's it. That's the touring. That's the management. You haven't got stream of physios and bloody mental health guys. 3 people running the tour. So we had duty boys who had a major job in organising the team, getting the guys organised, and that was that was. I was about to say that was fun, but it wasn't fun, because you had to hunt everybody up and you had to be up the earliest and make sure everything was on track. It was a bit of fun, I suppose. We made the best of it, but it was a chore. It was a chore. Okay.
I guess you all have to muck in a lot more back in those days. With just 3 people looking after a 3.5 month tour, it really is a community effort, isn't it? Where you've got to
one liaison, one sort of liaison or baggage man, if you like, came with us. That was it. So yeah, we all had to chip in. We all had to help out and do whatever we could do. Yeah.
What would you bring through? Yeah, I know you run a number of tours at the moment, but what would you bring back on a tour from those days, which you think would be well received on a tour these days? You got any little things that you think traverse the period of time?
We enjoyed it. I mean, we made the best of it. If we, whether it was wasn't a golfer, but those who were golfers, if we were somewhere near a great golf course, they'd make the best of going to the great golf courses. If there's sites to be seen, we'd be seeing them. Wherever possible. So, you've got to get out and do whatever you can do in a country you haven't been typically before, and, places you haven't been. So you've got to get out and see things, make the best of it. I think that's part and parcel of it. We'd had fun. We'd had dress-up parties, we'd birthday parties for guys. We had a lot of fun.
What was your favourite
toga nights and that sort of thing?
Toga nights.
Yeah. They were always classic nights. They're always debauched evenings.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And the post-match functions were always formal events, and we'd have a dinner every night after a test match, and we'd have the town crier there. My lords, ladies and gentlemen, pray silence for Mr. Ross Turnbull, manager of the Australian Rugby Football Touring Union. And Ross would get up and then he'd speak, and then they'd hit the gavel again and go, well, we'd like to present to you so-and-so, the manager of the Rugby, English Rugby Union. Very formal, but then we'd go and have a few beers with the guys. So, it was, particularly in the UK, it was very formal, a lot of those events, which was great.
Yeah.
But we'd go to training, and there'd always be the women's auxiliary having, morning tea set up for us, and coffee and scones and that sort of stuff. So, they looked after us well.
I love it.
And then at the end of it, like we're amateur, we get £6 a day, £4 a day, I think. And at the end of the tour, got a Waterford Crystal pitcher with, Wallaby Tour UK, whatever year, and they'd make millions out of it, particularly the long tours, the 3.5 month tours, they make absolute millions and millions because every ground was packed. Every ground, and we played some great footy in that 81-82 tour, 67 tries to 9 against in 23 matches. But the following tour was the Grand Slam with Slacky captain, but we only won one test because we weren't kicking the goals. I mean, Paul McLean, O'Connor, Ella, Gould, who else? Hawker, whoever. We're all toe kickers, and plus also the set plays in the wet conditions and the English conditions didn't quite suit us. But when those teams came to Australia, we typically beat them in Australia. So, yeah,
makes a difference, right?
Does make a difference.
Well, mate, when you're talking about your own the play in the game, you have a reputation for being a pretty abrasive, tough player, to put it mildly. Mate, was that done by design, or were you always just that was you, a big physical, like just enjoyed the physicality of the game and played tough? Is that what
the latter?
You played tough?
Oh, that's yeah,
Loved it.
Loved it. It's a physical game, yeah.
I have a few quotes from you here, which just like this kind of concept of quote from you: "If you're looking for comfort, you're in the wrong game." Is that kind of a statement that sounds like you? And around that, the game should be tough. Do you reckon?
Comfort doesn't fit in anywhere, does it?
No.
Where does that fit?
It depends how you define comfort. If your comfort is the dark at the bottom of a ruck, that's the cave that you love, then maybe that's all right. If 17 sprig marks down the back is your ideal of comfort, then potentially it is.
It's a physical game. It's a game of centimeters and physicality. It's a physical game. Always has been. Always will be.
What do you think it teaches? What do you think it teaches players that that part of the game, that physical distress part of the game?
I think you're born with it. It's innate, mostly.
Where would it have come from for you?
From within.
Because it's always the bane of a coach's existence sometimes you have players with all the talent in the world, but they just don't have that grit, that kind of and you can't really teach it, eh? But you kind of have to. You have to.
Sorry, no.
You just what would you suggest to coaches around that side of things? That's part of the game where you were so good.
And the touch judges couldn't report. There was no eye in the sky. There's no, so that all helped. I just think, training, you train as if how you want to play. So you've got to have a lot of physicality around training. It's got to be always. And when I did a bit of coaching after I finished, it involved in the Australian 20s for a little while, coached the brothers. It's just, innate in people, but you've got the physical drills and what you're doing at training has got to be physical. It's got to be contact. It's got to, emulate what you're going to have on the paddock and, the fence in your face and,
yeah. It's the part of the game where that's the bit that draws people in, because it's a sport like no other, isn't it? Where you've actually got that sort of that physical hurt, which can lead to emotional hurts. I love watching young kids play, and you can see the ones that are going to go well in the game because they take a hit or they get knocked down and then they leap straight back up and they go straight at it again because they loved that feeling. They have no problem about the ego or the emotional hurt from getting knocked down or bumped off or hit hard in the tackle. It's almost like a lot of young players love that.
Thrive on it. They strive on it. But those who don't, I think they learn. They, realise that it's a physical game. They've got to be on the ascendancy. They've got to take, territory and, attack the ball and attack the player, So I think they learn it.
Yeah. Do you think there's a danger in trying to
And there's
make
wingers who don't have any physicality and don't, typically.
Well,
Here's my bias.
Mate, that's changing though, right? There's the work rate of some of the wingers these days to get stuck in and pick and go and stuff is definitely a changing.
You take Dan Gundo in the red side of the moment. He's involved in everything. Wants to pick up the ball at the back of rucks, take people on. It's great to see, and and all these a lot of the wingers now hitting breakdowns. If there's a centre band caught, if they're first there, they know to go in and commit. So they're a lot more involved than what they used to be. Yeah, which is good to see. It's fabulous.
Really good.
Some really good skills. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think there's a danger in trying to make players too comfortable in the game?
Again, that comfort word, I don't relate to it.
Sorry.
And I don't. I mean, they've got to be comfortable in and confident in the skills they've got, the plan that the coaches set out. But comfort, I don't know. If you're comfortable, you're in the seconds. I don't think you're in the top side somehow. When you're looking at evaluating people, you've got someone who's comfortable playing the way he's playing and he's just doing enough. He's not, I'd be looking at someone else who's got, 10 out of 10 for 9 out of 10 for physicality and aggression versus, and with 6 out of 10 for skill. But you're always going to need a Campese, or someone like that. So that's a contrary view. That you've got someone like Campo, you think he's going to score 4, but he's going to let a couple in. You go, well, okay, we need him. So
yep.
That's contrary to my argument, but that's reality. That's the game, But these days, wingers are getting caught out. They need to defend. They need to be good in defence. They need to, hit rucks and mauls and show some physicality, be physical.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. What do you reckon about the effort areas? Because like some of the old school values from when you played, they're really big on things like work ethic over shortcuts, pride in those effort areas. They're still the same, but how important are they in rugby?
Pride? What did you say? Pride and effort and...
Yeah, those sort of ones. Those pride, the effort areas, they're huge in the game, right?
Yeah. I mean, got to be 11 out of 10 for effort and wanting to achieve, and whether that's being a front rower and you're going to play, you're not going to be seen in the game. Well, front rowers are more and more these days, but you're going to have your skills, have your ability to hookers, basic skills. Whatever else you do, like a hooker, scrums and lineouts, and if you're able to do anything different apart from take the ball off the back of mauls and rolling mauls, it's a bonus. If you get someone who's good in the open and got great hands, that counts. But to me, it counts less because you want them to do their core skills for that role.
Mm.
And they've got to have 9 out of 10 for that, and then whatever else they've got as a bonus. I think that's how I would look at it.
Yeah, and where would rucking sit for you? Because that when I do some when I look you up, mate, it says rucking was one of your specialities. For those that don't know, rucking isn't in the game anymore, but it's the process by which rucks are self-governed by a set of sprigs where you can stand on anybody on the wrong side. And some people, probably yourself, were experts at that art of the game. Now that is
only
super
to secure the ball, only to secure possession.
Mate, how did you master that art, the art of rucking? How do you do that well?
Well, I think you just got to. Well, rucking wasn't an art. I don't think it was just the ability to hit a ruck or a maul hard, and in the process of doing that, you're going over the top of players. The ball's there, obviously, that's what you're after. But there was rucking, but my skills was also mauling. There was a lot more mauling the ball in those days, stealing the ball from opposition, mauling, the ball was up off the ground a lot more than what it is now. There's a lot of so much more play on the ground, in the contact situation. In our day, it was more vertical,
Yeah, interesting. That's a fascinating shift for the game, isn't it?
Much more. I mean, these days, obviously, you go into a tackle. If you're held up, the referee will say held. He'll go to the ground. It's and very few times halfbacks, if you have a look, I think, get given a ball from someone in the middle of a maul, a stand up, contact with the opposition. It's, I don't know, what would it be, 90-something% picking up off the ground and distributing. The halfback would be.
Yeah.
Whereas in our game, it was a lot of it was off the ground. It was heavy contact and then ripping the ball, mauling, having it in the hands rather than on the deck.
Yeah. I love that. It's a very different sort of physicality. And we were talking off air about one of your incidences, a punch in the face, mate, which ended your captaincy when Bill Cuthbertson for Scotland. Do you want to run the audience through that one? Because it's something which doesn't happen these days. Oh, come on, Tony. It was a long time ago. Surely you've.
Was it? Well, they say just one goat.
Yep.
Yeah, we're playing Scotland. I was captain in 81, 82 of the long tour of the UK, and we'd scored 3 tries to 1 against Scotland, and we got beaten by the most number of points in a Test match on tour. Andy Irvine kicking goal after goal. We're missing goals. Frustrating test. So Mark Ella 5'8", ball comes to him. He drops the ball. I reckon they're all offside. And I've just remonstrated with the referee going, sir, they've got to be offside. And I was a little vocal. And then Bill Cuthbertson was behind me and he's coming whispering sweet nothings in my ear about my heritage. And I instinctively just turned and swung an arm, which whistled past the referee's nose, hit him. He's gone down. I think more lost his balance than anything else. It wasn't wasn't a king hit. And then I shit myself and referee's gone, you. And I've gone, as he started to point, I'm thinking he's going to send me off. And he's gone, you stand over there. I was very relieved, but he only wanted me to go 10 metres, not 50 metres off the paddock. Anyway, I wasn't sent off. So played the rest of the game. But you can imagine the Scots at Murrayfield howling for my, dismissal. And then at the selection meeting, I was a selector. Bob Templeton, Sir Nick Shahady, his manager. And we'd picked the front row. Second row came up and they'd agreed on the second row. I was playing second row at that stage, and they'd said, and my name not there. I'm thinking, oh, good, I'm playing the back row. Nothing was mentioned to me. Nothing from the management, about there's got to be some sanction here. I think the English Rugby Union would have had some conversations with Rugby Australia back here, I would have thought. And anyway, I wasn't picked in the back row, and I've gone, what's going on? Well, your form's not great at the moment. Your form hasn't been great. I went, since when? I played the test and I played a midweek game as well. And long story. So yeah, I didn't play the English test, so I sat in the stand for that one, and that was the Erica Rowe streak. I don't know if you remember that incident back then, but quite a buxom English lass came onto the paddock and had a streak at half time, and the Bobbies came together, and the Bobbies used to have the big helmet at the time. So it's this great photo on the front of the Daily News, whatever, next day, of the Bobbies hats over her breasts as they're walking off the paddock. So I'm in the dressing shed with, in the members stand, because I wasn't a reserve that day, next to Mickey Martin, Parramatta player. Mickey's gone, look at that, carrying on. And then one of the English ladies in the members stand very close to us with the comment, oh my God, she must be Australian. She was very clearly a buxom English lass who hadn't seen a lot of sun, I've got to tell you. So anyway, so they marched her off. We got a photo next. We went to Portugal after that for the Barbars game. And the News of the World, or whatever the paper was, we got I don't know, £1,000 or something. Paul McLean was treasurer for the tour, and they wanted a photo of her with the team, so we dressed up in the Wallaby gear, had Erica on our laps in the front row, and that was front page of the paper next day. So after this is a few days after after the test. So yeah, it was an eventful one, that one.
Can you imagine that being repeated in today?
No.
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 Imagine if you were the president of Australian Rugby and the Australian rugby team had done that in this day and age. The knocks
Paul
on
Paul actually went to Nick Shady, and Nick, here's what we're proposing to do. Nick's gone, we haven't had this conversation, and walked off. So Paul said, if we can earn $1,000, well, we get £4 a day, and you've left wives and children at home, you wait for 3.5 months, no income. And we were selling tickets. We had an allocation of tickets. We'd sell tickets. Some of the journalists would help us be up the street in the overcoats before the test match. Anyone, they'd be selling tickets and giving us the proceeds to put in the team fund. So we had a reasonable team fund at the end of it. So something good came of it. But yeah, as I said, it wouldn't be sanctioned by anyone. Well, probably wasn't then. Probably there would have been some interesting conversations I would have thought that headquarters would have had with Sir Nick after that one.
Sure would have. Absolutely awesome. We'll have to dig those photos up. And you said you were is that how it generally run, where you were selector as well as captain? Captains in those days were part of the selection process with the coaches?
Yeah.
How do you think that goes?
You said coaches. One coach, one manager, me. Yeah, that was the official tour party, and a doctor. That was it.
How did that go because it's probably not as prevalent today, if at all, I would say, for most teams. How do you think it has merit and could be done in teams today?
Depends on the team. I think it's good to share, brothers, let's say, Harry Wilson's brothers, captain of brothers, and Ben McCormack, I wouldn't be surprised if they shared decisions on what I'd want to know as captain. I'd want to know why you've picked that side. So why not be involved in the process where you get to understand, why certain players were picked, and depending on the opposition we're playing, what the pluses and minuses might be of certain players. I'd want to be, I'd want to be in that session, because otherwise I'm going to be asking, hey Ben, why is he picked and you haven't picked him? His form last week was great. Well, there's more to it than that, surely, with the guy we're playing. So rather than have that conversation post-selection, I'd rather, and then he can talk. It's not just the coach talking to the player. I think it's important that the captain also has that discussion with the player about, comforting him, putting the arm around the shoulder, saying, hang on, mate, we need to work on this, and this for you. Here's what happened last week, or here's why you're not playing because of the opposition and their strengths or weaknesses. I think it's good to share that with the captain. Absolutely, the selection with the captain, depending on the side. Is it the Wallabies? I think you get, typically the Wallabies have the coach is the selector. I don't know what counsel he seeks. I don't know what counsel he might seek on the selections, but I think he would probably go to the other assistant coaches and talk to them about decisions. I would have thought he should. But ultimately, it's the coach's job. It's his reputation. It's his life on the line. Yep. So ultimately, he'll pick the team he wants to pick, which is very different to our era.
Yeah, it is a different era one, isn't it? And
yeah, it is. It is, but a club-wise or even at school, I think first 15 it would be helpful, I think, whether there's a real selection meeting or not, whether there's a gathering of the heads about who should be in or not. The coach should grab the coach should grab the captain before it's announced to say, here's what's happening, here's why it's happening.
Yeah. I think that's a really lovely little one to remember for all coaches is that the captain often provides that bridge between players and coaches. Like that's that one step removed for both parties.
Really important.
Mm, and to get that captain on side by divulging, sharing that sort of information is a great trust builder, and it helps then like water down that information, like spread it a bit more seamlessly through the whole organisation when you've got someone who's got a foot in both camps. And the more you can sort of bring them into that camp, the better job they're going to do at disseminating that information.
Yeah. Yeah, as you said, it's all about trust. It's all about belief, trust, sharing, understanding why decisions are made and being part of it. And if you can have a say in it before the decision's actually made, I think that's important.
Yeah, and you got to say these things too, right? There's another phrase I heard you say, that silence creates problems in leadership and in teams. So you need to talk about truth and not just protect people, right? You got to say what's on your mind, what you're thinking, why you're doing something, and just
You've got to make some hard decisions sometimes, absolutely. It's not easy being a coach, selecting, and more so these days because it's their livelihood as well. So you've got another aspect to the whole decision-making process.
Yes, which is a big one, which differs from the amateur era, right? Like when you didn't get selected as a player after bopping someone in the face, you essentially went to, if you were to be able to go home because it was a quick flight, you would go back to work and you'd probably make more money in your day job, right? Whereas these days, this is the profession. So when you get chopped and not selected, it's the profession which is compromised and all the stuff that goes with that
as well. Yeah.
I find that a really fascinating change in the game, and it's interesting. And talking about sort of other professions, mate. Now we talked a little bit about touring earlier, and you're actually away on tours now. You do a little bit of touring, and you go away, and you're off on pretty soon. You're off to Argentina with the originally you were on the first ever game toured Argentina in 1979 with the Australian team.
First time the Wallabies ever played Argentina. We toured, had 6 weeks in Argentina.
How was that tour?
Had two tests. We lost the first test.
Yep.
Hugo Porter at number 10. It's fairly handy. A couple of 2-metre, 120 or 30 kilo second rowers. Exceptionally good scrum. So they won the first test. We won the second test. But, fabulous country to tour. They were so hospitable, and rugby hadn't developed. It was still developing at that stage. I think we played since then. There's been 30-something tests that we played against them. We won, I think, 20, against 20-10, and then there's 3 or 4 that were draws. So we've had the benefit of beating them over a longer period of time. But more recently, they've got the wool on us. I think they've won 6 or 7 out of the last 10. So they've come good.
They've come really good. What's it like touring Argentina? Because they're very different to the UK, different to France. What's it like going to Argentina as a place to tour?
As I sort of been to once in 79, which was the playing, and then 2015 when Checker was coach, I was president of Rugby Australia, so I went there. It's a fabulous country, and Gullivers have got this tour on, and they're experts at organising tours and structuring them well. So it's 11 or 12 days away in Argentina to watch 2 tests in Salta and Mendoza. So it's in the country. We're going to BA, Buenos Aires, and spending some time there, but it's just great to be out in the country areas because it's fabulous country, and it's and the meat and but the whole culture of the place, the meat and the food and the red wine, Malbec, is the popular red. So it's stunning. So they're doing a great trip. And I've done 3 already. I've done 3 World Cup tours, England, Japan, and France more recently. But they're very good at structuring this, and this is just as soon as they said, "Sure, do you want to interested in leading a tour?" I've just gone, Absolutely, because it is a stunning country, and we're going to Iguazu Falls. We've got a day on a ranch, watching do all the horse tricks. We've got tango nights. It's good fun. It'll be good fun.
Yeah. No, Gullivers certainly do a wonderful job. We use them for our tours too with some of the school teams and
Schoolboys,
yeah, they do a wonderful job, and just it's just a one-stop shop, right? But mate, I couldn't agree more with like Mendoza, having been there, and just the thing, drinking red wine in Argentina with it. If you like meat, you are going to be in absolute heaven.
Heaven.
Yeah, I just remember like some places we went to, they were serving like kg steaks with and they were delicious, and they were simple but just beautiful, and just know how to enjoy life over that part of the way. And I love how they celebrate games too. Some of those. Some of the crowds in Argentina are just phenomenal. They sing. It's like a world of its own. It almost takes that soccer style mentality to a game, and they're chanting, singing, dancing the whole way through. Right?
It's electric, absolutely electric. And then the stadiums we're playing in, one's a 20,000 stadium, one's a 40,000 stadium, but they're soccer stadiums. We're not in the big impersonal, 50, 60,000, capacity stadium. These are earthy, they're former soccer stadiums, but they'll be great. You're close to the action. Everyone will be dressed up. We'll be very, 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 very small minority, all dressed in gold, but, we'll be vocal and trying to keep up with the locals, as you can imagine.
You'll be trying. How many people are taken away? You're not going for 3.5, just 11 days, not the 3.5 months this time round.
It's a snatch and grab raid. And then obviously there's the ability, because north to the USA, if you want to, I'm thinking of going to New York afterwards or before. So, you're away for 10 days. It's like, well, why don't we take another week or two on the end of that and head somewhere else, in the Americas. So it's fabulous tour.
And I can imagine with you as the tour leader, with your decade of 3.5 month tours, you will have card tricks, card games, all sorts of kangaroo court sessions up your sleeve, ready to roll at any time, right?
But half the fun is the different people that go. Some guys go on their own, some are couples, different age groups. We had two on the French trip, two guys and their 20, 21-year-old sons with them. But you form a real camaraderie with the team. We do a lot together. There's 6 lunches or dinners as part of the package. So we'll have events. We'll have dress ups and all sorts of things. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun. But Iguazu Falls. I mean, it just encapsulates every part of the gauchos. We got a day on the prairie with the gauchos, and obviously the steaks, the barbecues, the Malbec. That'll help wash it down.
Certainly would. And just last week, the podcast previous to this, we actually sat down with Felipe Contempomi and talked about the state Argentina rugby's in, and it's in a very positive state, rugby in general. Like, it's one of the few places in the world, he said, where club rugby is on the rise massively. Like, the numbers are going through the roof. So the groundswell for rugby in that country is one of the best around. It's sort of bucking world trends in a lot of ways. Like, in most of the world, the women's game is going through the roof, but in Argentina, all forms of the game is going through the roof, from amateur roots. So to go on tour, to watch the big games, and then also be around all these people that are just moving towards the sport with this real groundswell, it will create this. It'll be absolutely magic.
There's great passion for the game, massive passion for the game.
Yeah. How you looking for like? Are the spots all taken up, mate? Can I jump on the trip, or what's going on here?
It's definitely available, mate. Definitely. There's spots available. We're looking to get 20 together at least. If we can get 20, we'll be happy. But there's quite a few who've been on previous trips with Gullivers who are interested in coming. So it'll be great fun. It'll be great fun,
mate. Awesome. What's it like, out of interest, mate, when you go and obviously you've played big test matches and you've walked into these sort of stadiums? What are some things that people might miss like in terms of the atmosphere and the details around walking into a big stadium, test match as a captain. What would most people miss about that you reckon is worth a comment?
I think it's a bit different for us because we the touring group, we would have, a lot of the games that we have gone to would have been at night, so we would have had a lunch, we would have had a few beers, a few red wines, a bit of a chat about the game, what to expect on the bus on the way there. Having beers while you're there. Drinking and having a good meal is all part and parcel of the rugby, as you know. So we try and fit as much of that in as we can. So I think it's very different to when, like a home test, and I always get nervous before Waratahs, Queensland games. Always get the leg starts tapping, and I get a bit nervous beforehand. And test matches, I get a little testy, but few beers help soothe the nerves beforehand. But there's nothing specifically like it's just a great occasion. I think we're taking it all in as the rest of the crowd is. I don't think there's any different way I'll look at it to how the average punter and the average supporter would do it.
Yeah. Well, mate, I absolutely love those tours. I'm a massive evangelist for tours of any kind, but certainly with the Gulliver's crew. And if people listening do want to, Gulliver's are a big supporter of us here at the show, and so if anyone does want to jump on that tour, they can just reach out to me, and I can put you and Tony in touch, and he can drag you along for a absolute whale of a time.
The best tour is the next one.
The next one, yeah.
Always the next one. The best one's the next one. You look back and say, we've had a fabulous time at that World Cup and that World Cup, and touring the UK and all that sort of stuff. But this one will be very special.
It will be special, mate. Far and yeah, it'll be bloody special, mate. Bloody special. And especially with dare I say it, some of the things which are happening in the world, in different parts of the world, touring and getting flights to some parts of the world is not a good thing at the moment. Yeah, it's difficult.
No.
So
exactly.
To find a place where you can get a great tour in and enjoy a bit of travel is harder
10
to
days
find.
and 10 or 11 days, and then there's an opportunity to branch off either before or after and head other places while you're there. It's a long way away. Might as well make the best of it.
I absolutely love it, mate. Every tour I've gone on, I've come back a better man for sure. In fact, my young son's just been away on an extended tour, and all of him and his buddies have come back at 14 years of age, and just different young men. It's incredible. Now, Tony,
rugby trip.
It wasn't actually. It actually wasn't. It was a school camp, but all the rugby guys went. All of them went on it, and they all played rugby every day. And they went on hikes, then took the footy ball, and then they played on the fields for hours every day, and they've come back fitter than they would have been. Yeah, loved it. And here's an interesting thing they did. The guy that ran the camp didn't mark the field because he wanted the boys to experiment with whatever dimensions they wanted to come up with and make the games and not feel constricted by lines or posts, which I thought was a wonderful educational piece to then get young rugby players to just think outside the square, play a different sort of game, play with a different format. Apparently it was really good. Yeah, I really did.
Okay, right, awesome.
Now, Tony, we've got to that time, mate. We've just got time for one more question on the show, and it's this one. And with your generation of experience inside rugby, player, coach, president of multiple organisations, what's something about rugby that you believe in that you reckon your peers would actually disagree with?
I think the state of the game. I think there's a bit of negativity around the state of the game. And the Wallabies showed so much spark last year, and then we got everybody's hopes up and played so well and won some great games, and Harry Wilson to take as captain in that Townsville test against Argentina to not take the 3 points, being down by 3 points to draw the game, that he persevered instead of going for the line. And then I think it went on for another 8 or 10 minutes until we actually scored. And I think things like that brought heart and soul, and great people have gone, love rugby. This is what rugby's about. When he just didn't want to draw, he said, I'm going to hang in here and take the risk, which he did several times, and he prevailed. But I think the state of the game, I think a few people are a little negative about that, but I think I might have said earlier that Rugby Australia is working really hard to get the grassroots to women's rugby, the juniors, people coming through the code, getting them involved, and I think with sevens, particularly the women, a lot of the women, girls that are playing, there's a lot more. The growth in women's rugby and sevens rugby is significant. And I think as a result of that, you've got the girls that will play sevens and they might play 15s, but then the mums are at the rugby ground, not just seeing little Johnny play, but they're seeing, the daughters play and thinking and talking to other people and getting, more people involved. And I think they're getting more comfortable with the game, which is great. Whereas Aussie Rules has been very good at bringing women to the game as spectators. I think they've done an amazing job doing that. So I think, we've got a fair bit to go because rugby league and AFL have been really strong, and we've made some errors along the way. But I just think the strength of the game, some people are a little despairing a little about it, but I think we've also got some challenges with a new coach coming in. Leslie's coming in as Kiss as the new Wallaby coach, so there's a transition time coming up. So that brings a little element of uncertainty about it, pardon me. But I just think it's the depth of the game and the strength of the game. You've got the core supporters, but I think we might have lost a few off the edges over the time, but we need them back, and we need everybody, rooting for Australia and coming to watch games.
Yeah. Well, certainly seeing... Well,
that was a bit long-winded, but, the game's not in despair. I think the game's in good shape. But we just need to be... Super rugby teams need to be winning against New Zealand sides more regularly. That's a must. We've got to have that as the base to it. We can't just wait for the Wallabies to be playing the All Blacks and expect them to be playing at that level that they're playing. So there's a bit of work to be done.
There's
plenty of talent.
Yep, there is plenty of talent. Certainly seeing the schoolboy level here is phenomenal. Like, as an example, the Australian under-18s smashed New Zealand under-18s by a lot.
Twice, wasn't it?
Twice. By 80 points they put on or something silly like that. So,
and I hear a lot. I think Rugby Australia and the franchises are getting involved with those guys, giving them a bit of connection with Rugby Australia, with the Wallabies and that sort of thing. So I think in the past the league scouts were picking them off. I think there seems to be a bit of some camaraderie around those guys saying, let's have a go, let's step through. And you've got Pritchard, not Jaden, Trayvon Pritchard, 18-year-old, playing for the Reds. He's picked for the Reds this weekend. He's already played 3 games. He's 18. So there's some good talent coming through. So we need to nurture that, develop it, pull them in, get them engaged, because they're important for our future.
Couldn't agree more, Tony.
Hopefully I haven't rambled on too long, mate.
Tony Shaw, what an absolute pleasure and to have such an icon of the game on the Coaching Culture podcast. So thank you.
Thank you.
What
Thanks,
a privilege.
Mate. Cheers.